and welcome to this new video that I have dedicated to showing the enhancement that I did on my USB MIDI firmware in order to achieve 4 MIDI channels. Before to start, I really would like to ask you to subscribe if you like my work, to give a thumbs up to the video if you like the video, and to hit the bell, because if you hit the bell you will be informed as soon as there will be a new video. This is just a small click and a small action from you, but it's very important for the growth of my channel, so I thank you in advance if you will want to do it. So this video is a little bit of a pause to my stream about the DIY remote controller. I decided to make this work of analysis and then the video because I was really curious to see if it was possible to achieve the implementation of 4 MIDI channels through the USB MIDI implementation, and especially using the Windows USB MIDI generic driver. And I have to say that at the end I managed to do it. First of all, the MIDI USB device is connected to the USB bus, to the host. In this case, of course, the host is the PC, and as you can see, the generic USB MIDI Windows driver has enumerated my device. You still see one single device here. The version in the old implementation was 0.5. Now I put it 0.6 to magnify the fact that it's a new enhanced version. I was saying the Windows still see one USB MIDI device, but actually this now expose 4 MIDI channel. So if we open a MIDI monitor, we can see it easily. Here we have the MIDI device, okay, with all the MIDI specification and the device descriptor. We have then inside the descriptor, we have the configuration descriptor, the interface descriptor. This is the audio interface, audio control interface descriptor, and this is the MIDI streaming one, I guess. But what is most interesting is the dependency on the device. So in the dependency now, we don't have just one single MIDI channel with in and out MIDI cable, of course virtual MIDI cable, but now we have 4 pairs of this MIDI cable. So we have a MIDI in and a MIDI out for channel 0, a MIDI in and a MIDI out for channel 1, a MIDI in and a MIDI out for channel 2, and for channel 3, for a total of 4 channels. Let's check it a little bit in action. So I open here the structure view for my device into the USB monitor. We will see into this window all the package, the USB package exchanged between the host, which again is my PC, and the USB MIDI device. Let's open Cubase. Here we create an empty project. In the studio implementation, we still here see the Mackie control implementation, which is connected to the MIDI port, exactly as it was in the first version of my firmware. We add here 8 tracks, like this, and we see that moving the tracks. So for instance, if I click on this note on MIDI on track 1, I see into the USB monitor, for instance, checking this down package and checking the payload of the package. There you go. We have the indicator, the payload indicator, indicating that this is a note-on message and is going through a specific MIDI channel. And then we have the MIDI message itself. So under 44 is the indicator for the note-on, and these are the 2 bytes value indicating the activity of this MIDI message. Thanks to the enhancement of the USB MIDI firmware, what is possible now to do in the configuration of the studio is that we can add more Mackie control to and 3 and 4. And as you can see, those goes directly to MIDI in port 2 of my device, MIDI in and out port 3 of my device, and MIDI in and out port 4 of my device. So now Cubase is configured to use 4 MIDI channel, and to associate these 4 MIDI channel to 4 Mackie control surface. In order to have the new configuration active, I need to reboot Cubase. I don't know why I need to do so, but it's needed. So I close Cubase and I reopen it. I create an empty project. But this time I create 32 channels, and there you go. So exactly like before, now I can, let me erase the content of the MIDI monitor, it's going to be easier to check. So I can do the same. I create a MIDI message here, I find it here, and it's like before. Now the payload here indicator is 9 because it took automatically the first MIDI channel, and 9 is the indicator of a note-on message on the first MIDI channel. And then again we have the MIDI message like before. But what is interesting now is that if I go to a second group of 8, so audio 9, I do the same action and I got a new MIDI message here. There you go. Check the payload here. Again, it's a note-on message, but what is interesting is the ID has changed, signifying that it's going through the second, is the same note-on message, but going through the second MIDI channel. If I do the same here, again on channel 24, there you go. I see the same, I open, and there you go, same note-on message here, but going through the fourth MIDI channel. So in this schema, what I'm going to show is the structure of the original implementation of the USB MIDI firmware that I have developed some months ago. When I say original, I mean the one that is already shown inside the first series of videos about USB MIDI that you can find on my channel, and how I have extended this firmware in order to achieve 4 USB MIDI channels. 4 USB MIDI channels means 32 Mackie control channels, because by Mackie control specification, each MIDI channel can control 8 surface Mackie control channels. So in the original firmware, what I have implemented is a series of device descriptor, configuration descriptor, interface descriptor, endpoint descriptor, and a virtual jacks descriptor, in order to fire during the enumeration the generic Windows USB MIDI driver, which is a driver developed by Microsoft and residing inside your Windows. That was possible because in this implementation I have strictly followed the USB MIDI class-specific documents, which is provided by the USB IF, and that's enough to fire the generic Windows driver. The generic Windows USB MIDI driver is the driver that connects your, say, application like DAW or whatever application use MIDI residing in your computer to the device, USB MIDI device application that is connecting and communicating via USB. In the original implementation, I have implemented one single MIDI channel, bringing 8 Mackie control channels, surface channel. And to do this, I have implemented a couple of embedded virtual jacks in and out, and a couple of external virtual jacks in and out. The embedded ones are linked to the bulk in and bulk out endpoints, and are the one that really brings the MIDI message inside the endpoints and so forth through the USB cable to Windows, to the generic Windows driver. And the virtual jack in and jack out external, which are the one that virtually connect your MIDI application to the USB MIDI system. In order to add the other 3 MIDI channels, what I've done is that I've added 3 new pair of embedded and external in and out virtual jacks. Each of these pair brought one new MIDI channel for a total of 4 MIDI channels. So in terms of Mackie specification, 8 times 4, 32 Mackie channels. So let's see how I have implemented this. Just a brief view on the code. We are here into the MIDI device descriptor file. Inside this file there are a series of C macro in which I have described the descriptors needed during the enumeration of the USB. Here we have the device descriptor, and then the configuration descriptor, the 2 interface descriptor, the audio control interface descriptor, which is a class specific for audio class, and a MIDI streaming descriptor, which is a class specific for subclass, MIDI subclass. I didn't change so much into this descriptor respect to the first version. Where the story change is here, where there are the descriptor of the virtual jack, in, out, embedded and external. So I have created 3 more group of 4 jacks descriptor for the additional 3 channels. In each channel there is a jack in embedded, a jack in external, a jack out embedded and a jack out external. And what is most interesting is that these jacks are virtually connected each other. Of course, the in with the out and the embedded with the external. And so we have the jack in embedded with ID 01, which is connected to the jack out external, virtually connected, of course, to jack out external with ID 01, and the jack in external with ID 02, which is connected with jack out embedded with ID 02. With this configuration and virtual connection of the jacks, I've made the creation of the 4 MIDI channel, USB MIDI channel. And here there are the descriptor of the bulk out and bulk in endpoints and some string descriptor. But that's it. I'm very happy of this result. At the end of the day, it wasn't that complicated. It took me a couple of hours to achieve the result. And most importantly, as I said at the beginning, for me it was really to demonstrate that it was possible to achieve the 4 MIDI channel through the USB MIDI using the generic Windows USB MIDI driver, because of course having to develop a MIDI driver, a Windows MIDI driver for this would have complicated the thing, but instead it is really possible to do it also with the generic one. That's it. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.